Classic is a theme that I keep coming back to again and again in my sewing. I started being inspired by vintage patterns, so I always go back to the classic styles, even though I like to use modern techniques. Hi, I'm Gretchen Hirsch. I'm a sewing blogger and author. I'm also a sewing teacher online. So today I'm going to show you how to add a flounce to a basic skirt pattern. So if you look at this skirt right here, the flounce is that bottom area. It looks like a ruffle. It's a circular ruffle. You're going to see what I mean, instead of being gathered. So it just flares out really nicely and softly at the bottom. So it's a really classic retro look. I'm going to show you how to make the pattern change to make this flounce first. And I'm going to do this using a tiny little skirt pattern because it's a lot easier to see what I'm doing rather than working in full scale. So this would be your skirt front and back. This is a basic knit skirt, no darts or anything, so you can use the same pattern for the front and back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chop off an area at the bottom of this skirt, and that's going to become the flounce piece. So for my full-size skirt, I made the flounce about 6 inches. For my little skirt, I'm just going to do about 2 inches, just kind of decide what you want. You're the designer here. So I'm going to make a mark 2 inches above the hem here. And then I'm just going to cut this off. So let's grab some scissors. And you're just going to cut right across this line. And this is really fun. When you start doing stuff like this, you'll realize that you can really make your patterns your own. Okay, so this will be the top of the skirt. This will be the bottom of the skirt, or the flounce. What I'm going to do now is divide this into equal lines, and I'm going to do what's called slash and spread, and that is what's going to create the fullness in the flounce. So probably like every ½ inch here. I think on my full-size skirt I did a line every inch, just with my clear ruler and a pencil. The measurement isn't really so important. What's important is that you have a bunch of slashes or pencil marks that are equal distance from each other. And then I'm just going to kind of fudge this one because I'm getting close to the edge here. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to, remember this is the bottom, this is the hemline. I'm going to cut these slash lines up to, but not through the very top of the flounce. I'll show you what I mean here. So I'm just going to cut here, and I'm going to leave myself a little hinge at the top of each piece, so that then we can spread these pieces out to form that fullness. Oops. If that happens, all you need to do is just retape that piece. It's very easy to cut a little too far. So I'm going to tape that back together. There we go. Okay, now the tape will reinforce it, and I'm just going to be really careful not to go all the way through this time. There we go. See, easy to fix. Okay, so now just keep slashing up these lines, not going all the way to the edge. Okay, so now I'm going to place this on a new piece of paper. This is going to be my center front fold, cut on fold. And this is going to get spread around like this to form that flounce. So I'm going to tape this in place. And this piece is going to become at a 90-degree angle to the center front fold. So I'm just going to spread out like this. And then this needs to form a little curve. And that will eventually look like this. So it takes a little finagling, but just want to get it. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Just want to get the basic shape in here. And this is going to be your flounce piece. So all you need to do is just smooth out these lines using your ruler. This is going to be the hem of the flounce. If you have a curved ruler, that comes in really handy for this part, but you don't absolutely need it. You can kind of just freehand it too. Okay, and so this is going to be the cut on fold mark. So I'm just going to draw in my little bracket here that tells me to cut this on the fold. And of course you want to add a seam allowance here, because remember we just slashed down the middle of that pencil skirt piece. So this is where I would add in, because I'm doing this on a small scale, just a tiny little seam allowance. But if you're doing, your regular skirt pattern, full size, you're going to want your 5/8 of an inch added here. And not only are you going to want to add it here, you're going to want to add it to the bottom of the skirt piece as well. So remember this piece that we had before? We're going to also add a seam allowance down here because there's going to be a new seam here where we add the flounce on. So you're going to cut this pattern piece out, and then you're going to put it on your fabric. So I'm going to show you what it looks like once it's cut out. And then I also need to cut out the flounce on the fold, this curved piece here. And so when you do that, it looks like this, right? But then once you remove the pattern, you open it out and you get this. Now the next step to do is to sew the side seams of both the skirt and the flounce. I've gone ahead and done that because that's pretty simple. So I have the skirt with side seams sewn, and then I have the flounce, also has the side seams sewn. So now you can see how that's going to get sewn in right here. So I'm going to show you the sewing part of the flounce. So of course you need your thread. I'm using a double knit here, which is one of my favorite fabrics because it kind of behaves like a woven. It's very structured. It doesn't cling as much as a knit does. And you can use just your regular sewing machine needle and your polyester thread, your all-purpose thread. So of course you want to match to your fabric. The best way to do that is just take a strand of the thread here and lay it on top of your fabric. Find the right pink that you love to go with your skirt. I would probably do one a little bit darker like that. But to show you the sewing today, I'm going to use a light pink so that it really contrasts. So this is pretty easy. You're just going to sew right sides together, flounce to skirt. And of course you want to match your side seams. Very important. So I'm going to start by pinning one side seam and then the other. Here we go. Pin them there. And now I'm just going to sew this seam. You can pin across there if you like. I usually just like to pull it taut as I'm sewing, so I don't need to pin as much. Okay. I'm using my free arm attachment here so that I can put this tiny little doll-sized skirt on it like this. I'm using a small seam allowance because it is such a tiny little sample. You're going to right sides together, start sewing. Usual stitch length, just like a 2.5 or a 3, whatever you prefer. Back stitch here. And now I want to make sure that my edges are even here, because I have a really curved piece and then the straight piece, right? I have the flounce, which is really curvy, the skirt, which is straight. So I want to be very conscientious about matching those pieces as I go and making sure those raw edges are lined up perfectly. And then just keep sewing all the way around. So, like I said, there are some bias portions to the top of the flounce piece, but it's not cut on the bias. The center front of the flounce is cut right on the straight grain, just like the rest of the skirt. But because it's so full, just like a circle skirt, you're going to have some bias portions there. So I'm going to keep sewing here. I'm almost around to my other side seam. And after you sew the seam, you're going to want to press these seam allowances open, and of course finish them however you prefer, so that might be a zigzag or serging, whichever is your favorite method. And now you're going to see, when I open this up, how I have this cute little flounce on my skirt. So of course you'd want to give this a nice press, and then hem the bottom using a narrow hem, but that's all there really is to it. So that's how you're going to add your flounce to your basic skirt pattern.